Hello and welcome to Inclusive Agile Presents. My name is Darren. I am the Director of Research at Inclusive Agile, and I am joined with my good friend Brett, who we're here to talk about autism because it is Autism Awareness Month. But first, I'll tell you a little bit about Inclusive Agile. At Inclusive Agile, we specialize in Agile consulting with a different approach. We integrate inclusion and diversity right into the framework. Inclusion isn't just an HR problem, it's a whole organization solution to better practices and processes. If you are in need of professional consulting, please contact us at inclusiveagile.io, or you can contact either Brett or myself or any of the other lovely people who work with us at Inclusive Agile. All right, well, let's talk about autism.
Great subject.
And just so that make sure everybody knows that Brett's experience with autism is specifically his own experience, because autism is a spectrum disorder. So it means that everybody who's been diagnosed will have a different range of symptoms and abilities. And they might not be similar to anybody else with autism. It could be specific to, just to yourself. But the best way to learn about autism is to listen to somebody who has had to live it. And so that's what we're here to do today. So, and then during this event, feel free to post any questions you have in the comments section, and we will try to answer them. All right, so I think we should start with your diagnosis, Brett. Let's start right there at the very beginning. You were 42 when you were first diagnosed, right?
Well, the very beginning would be birth, but yes. We don't. Well, Big Bang, don't need to go that far. Yeah, I was diagnosed when I was 42. That is the answer for all of the Life, the Universe, and Everything fans out there. Great year to get diagnosed. I had been dealing with a lot of issues. Like many people that are on the autism spectrum, kind of knew really, really early on that there was something going on. I wasn't relating with everyone else like I was seeing everyone relate with everyone else. And I had kind of just dealt with it because I'm of the older generation, not completely older, but back in the 80s, autism wasn't a thing that you talked about. ADHD wasn't something that you were diagnosed with unless you were struggling so much in school that you were causing problems or having massive issues. And so I just kind of coasted along and learned how to cope with it by covering up and masking. We'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but over the years, just kind of made sure that nobody had any clue that I was different. That was the goal. And then a couple years before I got the diagnosis, just a few years ago, I had a really bad couple months, layoffs and financial issues and all of those things just kind of slapped into each other, and I finally sucked it up and said, okay, I'm going to go talk to a therapist. I've been needing to deal with this. I've been dealing with depression my entire life. Let's just do this, pull the trigger. Very fortunate that I managed to get connected with the best therapist in the world as my first connection. My first experience. That was wonderful for me. And we kept talking. We started digging into the challenges I had been dealing with. We talked about why I felt like how I had been feeling, and then kind of touched in. Okay, so there are some things that might be causing this. There are some neurodiversity types of things. And I'd heard about autism. I kind of always looked at that as a possibility of maybe, but that can't be the case. I'm not disabled enough. I'm able to function in whatever. People don't look at me and say, "Ooh, you're autistic." Therefore, obviously, I can't be autistic, so I shouldn't pursue this. Spent the time with my therapist, and after a couple of years of working through a lot of stuff, we finally got to the point where like, okay, let's get this tested. Let's find out. And I've gone through a couple different evaluations with a couple different organizations, different doctors, and got ADHD diagnosis, plenty of depression diagnoses. We won't go into that because it's not Depression Awareness Month, or anxiety, lots of those as well. But eventually took a little bit of time, took a little bit of effort. I was able to get officially diagnosed as somebody on the autism spectrum. And let me tell you, that was a wonderful and terrible thing at the same time. Uh, Getting the official diagnosis can be relieving. I finally got that moment of it's real. I'm not making it up. This is real. Somebody else is confirmed. Somebody that knows what they're doing is confirmed. And then about half a second later, the next part comes in of I now have documentation that I'm broken. I now have an official certificate in front of me that says that I am a flawed human being. And then it just starts, it's challenging to process it all. So there you go. That was my diagnosis process. I suggest if you don't want to go through it, don't. It's not a fun thing. But on that subject, one of the things that's kind of a big deal in the autism world is a lot of people like me are afraid, or how I was afraid, are afraid of saying that they think they're autistic unless they get that official piece of paper that says so. They don't feel like they could be included in the autism communities because they're an imposter. But no one else outside of your brain is ever really going to be able to tell you what you're dealing with. If you recognize what people are talking about with autism, if you are dealing with the exact same, not the exact same, as mentioned, it's a spectrum, everyone's different. But if you're dealing with similar types of issues and they're causing problems for you, you're autistic. You're on the autism spectrum. You don't need a piece of paper to say that. Now, if you want, social services and stuff like that, you'll need the paper, and that's very annoying and frustrating.
Well, during that, you mentioned masking, and you want to explain what masking is and how that presents, how it presents itself with you.
Absolutely. Masking's a general term, kind of a generic term that means you're doing something, you're acting in a way, you're performing something that's contrary. Let me adjust my camera here so I'm a little more visible. Not how you would normally act, so that other people can be more comfortable, or so that they don't know that you're dealing with something, an issue. And it's often referenced in autism because autistic people have a tendency to mask quite a bit because we're terrified of people finding out. We're terrified that somebody will know that there's something wrong, because we definitely feel like there's something wrong and we need to hide that. And so there's a lot of different ways that people mask. For me, I practiced how to act normal. My therapist will probably message me at some point and say, stop using that word. But that was, at the time, that's what I thought I needed to do, was I needed to project and be the same way that everyone else was. So I would either not talk to anyone, because I knew that if I talked and I communicated with people, that the oddity would show, or I would observe and watch and see how they talked to each other and then try to mimic it. And that's where the masking comes into play. I would put on a false face, pretending to be somebody that I'd been observing, so that I could be accepted, or so that I wouldn't make somebody else uncomfortable with the fact that there's something different about me. I have oddities. I say weird things sometimes. And generally my facial expressions are very, very reserved, dead, and plain. Makes people uncomfortable. And so I wanted to be part of people. I wanted to be part of that group of, normal people. And so I would practice and practice. I literally would spend hours in front of a mirror when I was growing up as a teenager going, okay, this eyebrow, this eyebrow, this eyebrow. Okay, I can wiggle my nose like Bewitched, because, I practiced all of those things so that I could perform them properly. I'd sit down and go, hey, let's look concerned. Let's look happy. Let's look angry. And because I knew that's what people needed. And that continued for pretty much my whole life, to be completely honest. And I'm sure it should be obvious, I'm masking right now because I don't know how to stop. And that'll be an interesting thing that I'll touch in a second. But the defense mechanism that people that are scared of being seen as different use. I got relentlessly bullied in elementary school, junior high, high school. And so I learned how to stop standing out to the bullies by masking and looking like somebody else. I got into professional work. I worked in the software industry for quite a while, and I learned how to run meetings because somebody needed to learn needed to actually run the meetings. I didn't like doing it. I wasn't comfortable doing it. I really hated being in charge of those situations, but it's what people expected. It's what people needed to see, but what I thought they needed to see so that I could be accepted as part of the group, so that I could be included as a team member and not just that weird guy that works with us from time to time. So the damage is massive. It is so still reeling and processing and dealing with the long-term damage that's been caused to me by feeling like I've had to do this my entire life. I mentioned, I don't think I can stop. A lot of people, when I talk about masking, when I talk about how I'm pretty much always on, they say, well, if it's natural to you now, if you do it all the time, doesn't that mean you're not masking anymore? That's just, you've just learned how to emote and act like normal people. And that's absolutely not the case. I feel like I have to keep doing it because I'm still scared. I know most of the people. Actually, I think I know everyone that's made comments so far. Hi, Spence. Hi, Doris. Great to see you all. But there is possibilities that there are people out there that don't know me, and I'm scared that they might see the weird still. And so whenever I interact with people in general, I am still masking. I am still putting up that over exaggerated. My eyebrows are fantastic. I put so much effort into making sure they work right. Purely because I want other people to not worry. And that can be problematic. That can be damaging because I shouldn't have to feel that way. Nobody should have to feel that way. Nobody should feel that they have to put on a fake persona just so that they don't get picked on, just so that they don't get singled out and targeted for anything. I had a blog post recently, and I'm going to feel a little guilty because I'm going to be talking about the people that have commented, not specifically Doris, Spence, you guys are the fantastic. This isn't you. But one of the challenges I had as a manager, I moved into a management and leadership positions in the software testing world, was I was terrified that if I went to lunch with my team, I went to lunch with the people that I was working with, that I wouldn't be able to maintain the mask. I would have to shift from being the boss, which was one of the masks that I would wear. I'm in charge. I'm the boss. I'm in control, and I know what I'm doing, to the entertaining person who you're talking to right now, the one that's really great at telling jokes, the one that is kind of fun to be around, and it's hard to switch. And so my team would say, "Hey, you want to go to lunch?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm busy. I just can't today." And then a couple days later, "Do you want to go to lunch?" No, something else has come up. "Well, do you want to hang out after work?" No, I've got other plans, because I just needed to go de-stress. And so I got to watch as people that I respected, people that I wanted to spend time with, were doing the absolutely reasonable thing of not asking me to go to things anymore. I kept saying no. Why would they ever think of anything other than I just didn't want to spend time with them? But the damage was because I just didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like I could take the mask down or switch the masks back and forth. So again, Spencer, Doris, you are both wonderful. It's everyone else that was on my teams that was the problem.
So before your diagnosis, it seemed like you were still, you recognized that you were masking and you adapted to that. Was there other things that were difficult in your life before that diagnosis came along? Like things that maybe just you didn't understand why you were doing certain things?
Yeah, absolutely. Sensory sensitivity is a big one that it's really, really been sinking in. And I'm writing a post about this as well. So look for it in the future. In the next few days, I'll be posting a blog post about sensory sensitivity. But I always kind of knew that I was a little more sensitive than to things than most people, but it never really crossed my mind that it was a problem, that it was something significant. So one of my major sensitivities is an audio processing disorder where I can't filter out, absolutely just can't filter it out. I never knew that that was a problem because honestly, when was the last time you compared how much you could filter out in the background to somebody else? And I've done this with you recently, so you
Yeah.
would say a couple of weeks ago, but most people never talk about that. Why would we? We can't compare the sensory things that are coming into our lives. So I always was just confused. Why on earth do people go to parties? Why do they go to clubs? Why do they go eat at restaurants on Friday nights when there's hundreds of people there? Because every time I walk into that situation, I would be overwhelmed. I would have every sound, every conversation, every beeping in the background, restaurants I can hear, every pot and pan in the kitchen clanking around. And I just couldn't understand. It never made sense to me. I just assumed I didn't like people and I didn't like being around people. But eventually, once I started understanding, looking and researching into these things, it clicked. I can't filter out the background noise. I actually like people in small groups. I like being out and doing things, but most situations make it next to impossible for me to be able to even be present. If there's too much noise or there's too many conversations going on, it gets so overwhelming. I can't think, I can't respond, I can't acknowledge anything, and I'm more or less catatonic. Um, but nobody else knows that because I'm catatonic with a smile on my face and am nodding every once in a while. So that's one of the things that definitely I wish I could have understood years and years and years ago, that I could have talked to people about years and years ago. That I am certain a lot of relationships I've had have been strained by the fact that I get reclusive in loud areas. My wife's family, they're fantastic, but there's a lot of them. I grew up in a very small family, and whenever we're doing family events, I just get overwhelmed. And one half of her family, one of my favorite experiences with them, we go over every month or so for Sunday dinners and event and Christmases and stuff like that. And there's a lot of them. We'd show up and I just kind of sit and smile and talk to people next to me every once in a while. And then somebody brought up bacon and bacon salt. And you might have heard I am a little autistic. So I love bacon and I fixated on that. And I started talking about all the different types of bacon I liked, all of the different bacon salts that they've made, the different flavorings and stuff like that. And Brandy's aunt just kind of looked at me and said, I hadn't heard that many words out of your mouth in the 7-8 years that you've been part of this family. And it's probably true. So yeah, those are the types of things that have always been an issue. Pretty much all of my senses are kind of annoyingly sensitive on that front. I cannot handle smells, strong smells, deal with bright lights at work. Like Doris is saying, bright lights can be very, very problematic. My skin, so sensitive, can't wear lip balm, can't wear chapstick, can't put lotion on my hands without just getting, even thinking about it, I have to clean off my mouth because it drives me absolutely crazy. So yeah, sensory sensitivities is one of the big ones that I wish I could have known. I wish I could have understood a long time ago.
So having the context of the diagnosis, does that make it easier to understand the things that you're going through and experiencing and be able to put them, into context at least?
Absolutely. Knowing that what I'm experiencing is unusual has allowed me to hunt down tools that make life better for me. Yeah, another just silly, amusing, autistic, weird thing about me is my feet are just as sensitive as my hands. And so I can't wear lotion on my hands because they're extraordinarily sensitive. Stepping anywhere feels like I'm walking on sandpaper. If I step on just concrete, my feet actually start getting torn up a little bit because I just don't walk on things like that. And I've just always been uncomfortable because my feet were always weirdly sensitive. And I just, everywhere I walk, I would have to brush my feet off. And always just felt awkward everywhere. Now that I've recognized that it's just oversensitivity, there's nothing wrong with that. You just need to figure out a way to solve that problem. And went, oh, hey, slippers. Slippers are a thing. I could wear slippers and I don't have to worry about feeling carpets or anything like that. So I bought a pair of slippers and my life has been dramatically improved. I can walk around my house without freaking out all the time. We have cats, so there's always a little bit of kitty litter everywhere, and that's just the worst. And then another one that I'm very grateful for, technology is making some progress on, with the auditory processing disorder. There are a couple types of headphones, hearing aid-esque, that are designed to remove some of that background noise, to do some of the filtering that my brain doesn't do so well, so that when I'm in some of these more loud situations, I put them on, just kind of turn down the world a little bit, and it helps me not get overwhelmed. Would have never approached those things if I hadn't known that these were just physical, basic problems that I'm dealing with that can be solved.
So I think one thing that's impressive is with both an autism and ADHD and not being diagnosed until much later, you made it through school and even started a career, and were able to get jobs with those pretty much working against you. How are you able to cope with that, and how did you overcome that?
First semester, so the schooling part didn't go that far, unfortunately.
Okay.
Hilariously, I now teach at that university as an adjunct instructor, so kudos to me and ha to them. School was tough. It was a situation that I know a lot of people with ADHD and that are on the autism spectrum dealt with. It would vary dramatically depending on my teacher and how much effort they were willing to put into actually paying attention to the individual students. In the span of 3 years in elementary school, I went from normal math. I went, so 4 years. Normal math, I went to special ed math because I was struggling. And then the following year, I was number one in the math placement for our school ever in the entire history of the school. And then the following year, I was in special ed math, because it was, I just couldn't understand, couldn't process certain things based off of how it was being presented. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And so I struggled a lot through that. I love math, but man, I have not taken a math class since I was a sophomore in high school because they kept putting me in special ed math and I kept getting irritated. I wish I understood math better, but I stopped taking the class because it just was too frustrating. High school in general had a lot of those types of things where being able to focus was a problem. Fortunately for me, I was literally raised in the education system. My mom was an elementary school teacher, and since I was a kid, I was hanging out at the school beforehand and afterwards. And so I gained a passion for learning and gaining that knowledge and expanding what I can understand. And so that allowed me to kind of bypass the annoying teachers that weren't helping me and figured it out on my own. But yeah, as soon as I hit college, it just fell apart. I didn't have the structure that high school forced you in. Very, very necessary. The teachers were dealing with larger class sizes and stuff. They couldn't give that one-on-one interaction. And I just started falling apart. Lots of stress, lots of emotional challenges and stresses. And so I dropped out. I just figured I couldn't handle it and started working where I'm betting at least 50% of the ADHD neurodivergent people in the tech world start, and got a job in tech support back in the dial-up internet days, because I didn't have to see people. I didn't have to be interacting with them. Phone calls, annoying. I hate them, but it was still better than trying to do retail work or, one of the more challenging jobs like working at Home Depot and having to deal with all of that interactions of people, knowing where stuff is, having quick decision making of have to figure out where to go and what. Tech support was easy. I learned the 20 things that tended to come up, and I shut my brain off every night for a couple hours while I sat there and just recited the script. And so that worked for me. That led into software testing, as about 75% of the tech support people do end up in software testing or development. And I gotta tell you, if you're on the spectrum, get into software testing. It is satisfying. It is an environment where you can use and leverage some of the oddities that come from being on the autism spectrum, some of the hyper focus, some of the ridiculous attention to detail. All of those types of things can be leveraged really, really well in the software testing world. And so I was very fortunate that I got into that environment and was able to progress in my career there while still learning how to do a lot of the masking. Fortunately, after a couple of years of the software testing world, I had more or less perfected most of my started moving me into management, somewhat against my will.
So it sounds like with school and with work, the structure itself was important for you to succeed. Like you needed that structure around you to help you through. Is that pretty common with autism, or is that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Autism, and not everyone, obviously. My favorite phrase, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Every single one of us is unique and different. But yeah, a lot of us really, really need that structure, those rituals. I have a lot of anxiety about things happening unexpectedly. I have a lot of anxiety about plans changing at the last minute because it takes me a while to get comfortable with something like that. And so being able to know, like for our organization, for those curious, it's a fantastic place to work. As soon as we start hiring, you should come here. But we have made it clear early on that we don't expect anyone on our team to follow a 9 to 5 schedule. We want people to be available. We want to be able to communicate with each other, but you don't have to get up in the morning and you don't have to work till this hour. That doesn't work for me. I have to have that structure. I have to know I am coming into my office and I'm sitting down at my desk in this time frame. And then I know these are the tasks that I'm going to accomplish first. And this is what I'm going to focus on. And if I don't start my day off that way, I almost am useless for the day because my brain is trying to catch up and process with everything that I normally handle while I'm following my rituals, my protocols. And it can get very problematic as well, actually. You've all probably seen the challenges that people are dealing with lower functioning autistic people, children, where you shift one thing and they absolutely lose control because they need that structure of whatever it is, their favorite show, their having their straw that they chew on. A story I read about an autistic kid that loved the green straws. He would have the green straws from Starbucks and that would help him calm down. And so they said, okay, cool. If that works, that works. Here's your ritual. You get 3 straws a day that you could chew up or you can do whatever. And it just helps them relax and helps me relax. My wife has been helpful in getting used to that as well. She helps me out with a lot of the rituals and the things that I just need to do in this order. And she understands if it doesn't go that way, I'm probably going to be a little uptight, a little escalated emotionally for a while until I can actually process that and then move on.
So what should people be aware of with autism, and also how can other people help people with autism? I'm sure most people know at least somebody with autism.
Well, I guarantee everyone knows at least somebody with autism, whether they actually are talking about it or not, is the difference there. And I think that's the key, is talking about it. It's scary to talk about. I have been nervous about this particular live stream for days. I have been terrified about talking about autism and the fact that I am on the autism spectrum for a long time, because people tend to react. They tend to react strongly in a lot of ways, or honestly, sometimes just as bad, they tend to not react. And the thing that's important that I'm trying to talk about feels like it's being ignored. So I think what people can do, what could be the most helpful for, I think, everyone, both those on the spectrum, those off the spectrum, is just learning how to talk about it, learning how to talk about it casually, maybe not casually, learning how to talk about it with curiosity and interest, and not with a emotional approach. There's I'm gonna make no, Brandy's gonna share this with us. I think I sent it to her. There's an article I read recently. Yep, she's got it. That kind of touches in on some of these things. We'll post it out there. Wonderful whole saga with Brandon Sanderson, my absolute favorite author. Go check it out. But it talks about the gift of not feeling, and the author tells the story about how she was in a very, very dark place, struggling with a lot of things similar to this, and everyone that she would talk to about it would either get really emotional on her behalf. Oh, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this. Oh, this breaks my heart. This is just terrible that you have to deal with this. And all they would focus on was the negative aspects that it's happening. And she couldn't talk to them anymore because we don't want other people to feel terrible. We don't want to talk about stuff that's making people anxious and having problems. And so the gift of not feeling kind of talks about how we don't need an emotional reaction. Caring, that's fine. Showing that you do want to know and to care about us, but the best way to care and to show that caring is to just listen. Let us talk and try to understand. You're never going to understand. Nobody can completely understand. Being in an autistic brain is different. It's unique and it's impossible to really get unless you're in there. But we do want to talk. We're not talking because we're scared. I have many of the people that I talk to that are on the autism spectrum, they come to me because I've said, oh yes, I'm on the autism spectrum. And then they come to me privately and go, I'm on the autism spectrum too, but I don't want anyone to know, because we're scared, because we know that if we say something, somebody's going to react strongly. They're going to freak out and go, oh no, I have to worry about all of these things. But that's not what we need. We just need to be able to talk about it. For me, my audio processing issue, it's a big problem for me, but it's not everyone's problem. I am not expecting the entire world to turn its volume down just because I have a hard time with background noises. But for the people that know me, the people that care about me and who actually are not actually want to, that sounds a little dismissive. Those that do want to help and make my life a little less stressful, when they understand that lots of background noises is problematic for me, we work around that a little bit. And then if they understand that when there is a lot of background noise, I'm just not responsive and that's okay, that's fine. With my wife's family, we had an Easter gathering and there were a lot of kids with a lot of Easter eggs. And the family now understands, and it's okay with everyone, that when that's happening, I put my headphones in, lean back, close my eyes, and I'm gone for a little while. They don't have to worry about me. They don't have to ask if I'm okay. They just know I'm dealing with sound, and that's it. And it's not a problem. If we could have those conversations, if we could just elevate that awareness, the whole point of the month, in a way that isn't uncomfortable, isn't making people feel like anyone's doing anything wrong, that would make life a lot easier. That's what I'm hoping we can do here this month with the stuff that we're working on.
Well, I haven't paid very good attention to the chats that have been going on, so I don't know if there's any questions that we need to answer or not.
I had not seen any other.
There we go. Brett, I don't remember if we've ever talked about this. Do you have people question whether or not you're really autistic? I think meaning
I question.
just because you do mask it so well. If you didn't ever tell me, I would never have known.
Yeah. I don't think it's happened directly. Because I haven't talked about it. This is the last few months is some of the few times that I've been fairly publicly, outwardly talking about it. When we talked about my diagnosis with our various families, it was, a family gathering, not a lot of people around. Hey, this is what's going on. Not broadcasting, not sharing it out with a lot of people. At work, my last previous job, a few of the people I worked with knew that I was on the autism spectrum because it came up in conversation, but it wasn't something that I was telling a lot of people at the time, still dealing with a lot of that anxiety. So I haven't had much opportunity to be told that maybe I'm not exactly autistic, but I have been terrified of that from the very beginning. It is definitely one of the things that worries me about being able to mask is that I'm going to be disregarded. I'm going to be told I'm faking. I get worried about attending autistic specific gatherings because I'm not autistic enough. And that's a little challenging as well.
That sounds unpleasant. But well, you've made this incredibly easy for me. Every like 3 words I say, you meet it with like a couple hundred. So it's been an incredibly easy interview to talk to you and ask you questions. Is there anything else that you want to share? Any other stories that you feel would be important or impactful? Or
Well, I want to share that we do have some more autism stuff coming up this month. We've got a live panel coming in a couple weeks where I'll be doing the interviewing this time. I'll be on the other side of the screen. I don't know. We're interviewing, having a panel with several other people that are either on the autism spectrum or have children that are on the autism spectrum, and going to be doing similar types of things. I just demanded that I get my own dedicated time for this, so that's why we're here for this right now. That's going to be coming up. We've got some blog posts that I'm trying my best to make it through without, crying too much. Those will be coming up in the near future. Otherwise, thank you for letting me talk. Thank you for those that are listening. I want to keep talking about this. I'm scared. I don't want to, but I do. And I think I'm good at it. I've been told I'm good at it. So I'm looking for opportunities. If anyone wants to hear me babble about autism for a while, has an autism awareness month activity, wants to have an autism awareness month activity, I'll take care of that for you. This is something I want to talk about. Doesn't even have to be in this month. Reach out. I want to hear from people. I want to talk to people. It's just really, really important. And
I want to emphasize, if somebody's worried or scared, as Brett described it, reach out to Brett. He will definitely help you through it and give you some good guidance. He's a great person to talk to and always has good advice.
Thank you. Try not to toot my own horn. That's what the rest of my team's here for.
That's right. That's what I do. Anyway, well, I think that pretty much wraps it up, unless there's anything else. I think.
Thank you, Carissa.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Right. Thanks, Brett, for coming.
Thanks for the comments.
And
my pleasure.
And be sure to find us at inclusiveagile.io if you want more information. And thank you for watching.
I look forward to hearing from all of you.
All right.